Okay, dudes, this is what if Goku and Broly were sent to Earth. I do not own any of the art, and I know someone else did this. It was Katsu's Dojo. Sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing things. Before I start the video, there have been some of y'all in my comments who are saying that, who are talking about how if I'm injured or something, I shouldn't make a video. Well, I barely healed, my head barely healed, so I could make videos, but last night my brother kind of busted my toe open with a shotgun. Don't worry, I'm fine. So let's get into the video, shall we? So here's how it goes. Broly, he was about to get sent to that same planet, but instead, his father, Paragus, got to the controls and was able to get him to be sent to Earth instead, which was not a very popular, I guess you could say, planet because of how far away it was. If you're wondering how distance really mattered, it would take 2 years to travel there. Sorry about that, guys. And it would take 2 years to travel back. That's why it wasn't seeming to be a good choice. Or at least, that's what it should take. I'm gonna say that's the distance from that planet. There was a way that they could get there faster, but it just was, like, really difficult to get there. You know what, nah, I'm gonna say it just wasn't there because it was just low-level planet that they could send children to and they could take the planet. So, they weren't gonna send anyone there. Because they were originally going to send an adult male or something there to take it out because, well, there was a lot of resources there, but there was also very unadvanced things there that they couldn't really mess with because they just didn't want to. So it was actually not a real good planet that was going to be attacked. It just wasn't. But instead of that, him going to that same planet, Paragus messes with the controls, sends Broly to Earth. Broly gets, I'm not sure what I should call Broly in this. I'm gonna take it from Carthu's Dojo. Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm gonna call him Goten. I will still be referring to him as Broly, though. And Goku, he does the same thing. Same thing happens to him as it did in canon. Bardock managed to get that, and he knew about the legend of someone who betrayed the king before and did the same thing, that only he had messed with that, so he knew about that, what could happen, but he didn't care. And he knew that if it were to come to blows, he was already strong enough to fight the king, and he had more fighting experience than the king, so if it were to really come to blows, he could probably win. At least that's his mindset, being that in this version, his power level had been 10,000 in canon, and the king's was 1,200. No, it was 10,250. Well, in this version, Bardock is healed enough to where he's actually got a power level now of 10,500. So he's stronger than the king, and he already has more fighting experience. So, yeah. Now, the king doesn't really notice that there's someone stronger than him on Vegeta yet, but when the entire place is going to blow up, he still has the whole thing of going out there and trying to stop it, but he still fails. So anyway, Goku lands on Earth 5 years after Broly did. A full 5 years. I'm gonna pull up a different picture because this isn't my art. I don't own this art either, but someone already used that for their video, and I'm not gonna steal that thing. I mean, it might become my thumbnail, I'm not really sure, but I can't really do that since someone already used that. Yeah, anyway, I pulled this picture because it has everyone I'm needing. So, now, there's still, hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. There's still this entire team of people that are there, although there's also Tarble. I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna say that somehow Bardock survived, and he was found, but they didn't Frieza didn't recognize Bardock, and he just said, Another monkey. How do you survive? He says he doesn't know. He thought he was going to take the blast first. Whatever, he doesn't know how he survived. And he asked what Frieza planned to do. And he said that he thinks that there's going to be a lot of explosions. Am I going to mess with this and say Bardock had sent Goku away and he still did the whole attack thing, but in this version Frieza's blast sent him flying to planets away. A couple planets away? Now, Frieza didn't know where everyone was because he didn't really keep track of it, so I'm going to say that Nappa found him injured, and they didn't know how much his power level was because he was injured way too much. They all felt power level at 2,000 because all they got was a power level of 2,000 because of how injured he was. But then when he got recovered, they decided he was a low class warrior, but his power level was 10,000. At that point, it had already been 15,000, so, I mean, 10,500. But at that point, he had already powered up even more, so I'm going to say it was 15,000, 15,000. Yeah. And Broly, his power level was showing to be really high, so I'm going to say his power level showed to be 40,000 at times. And when he had gotten Ozaru once, before Goku arrived, he went Ozaru and wound up he got the same scars he has in canon, in the Super Broly thing. The reason he has those scars is because Grandpa Gohan was launching attacks trying to calm him, and had to fight that whole night. And in the end was so exhausted, but he had gone reverting down to the same way, and the only reason, and I'm gonna say that he doesn't really survive this, he'll still be killed by Goku on accident. That's because because it had worked against Broly, but he wasn't able to do that against Goku for some reason. It just didn't work as well. Launching random attacks. Launching coordinated attacks, he wasn't able to in this version. Anyway, so being that Ozaru is at 10 times multiplier, he was already at 400,000, which is almost as much as Frieza at his weakest form. And I'm gonna say that Bardock knows where he sent his son, and he had heard of the same dude sending his kid there a couple years earlier, so he knew that there was gonna be another Saiyan there, and he was hoping that they were safe. And he talked to them about it and how they should hide it from Frieza for a while. And I'm gonna say all the Saiyans have like quarters surrounding each other, since they're known as since they aren't really cared much for. They're actually kind of like all together. And being that Bardock is the strongest one there, actually, yeah, he's the strongest one there right now. It would take Vegeta when he's grown to actually be the same power level as Bardock, so yeah. And Bardock trains, so yeah. I'm gonna say that doesn't happen. Anyway, when Goku lands, he was given the name Goku and all that same thing. And when they saw the Ozaru form that happened, I'm going to say the Ozaru form that Goku used was still the same weak power level, but Grandpa Gohan died because he tried stopping it because he felt he could beat it with his physical strength, because he only had a power level of 2, which makes him at a power level of 20. If he had a power level of 20, how did a guy who had a power level of 175 die to him? I'm going to say he didn't die. Actually, I'm going to say that both Goku and Broly had actually looked at the moon that night and accidentally crushed and had killed Grandpa Gohan. Because that's the only way I'm saying this man goes out. He goes out a hero trying to stop them both. They don't get any scratches or anything, but he goes out trying to stop them both and winds up getting crushed. But they know about the whole they call it the monster. They call it the same thing that Goku had in canon, the Moonlight Monster or whatever. That's what they think it is. Whenever the moon is out, a monster comes out, so they always hide in the house. And I'm going to say they buried Grandpa Gohan, and not many people could keep up with Goku's crazy physical strength. If you're wondering what I mean by crazy physical strength, he's just that powerful. Now, I'm going to divert a lot from Katu's version a little bit sometimes, and other times I will use his as a muse for it. So I'm not trying to steal his glory. I'm just trying to build off the one he did and change it a little bit for my own purposes. So if you want me to take it down, I will, if you even know what my videos are. I'm not a very popular channel, and yours is really cool. That's why I'm using some of your ideas, so sorry if you don't like that. I'll take the video down if you want me to take it down. Katu's Dojo is that's all to you. Anyway, Goku and all that, before they even make it, being that Broly, they hit their heads, and that means Broly won't go berserk, but he knows how to go into Ozaru form. I mean, neither of them go into Ozaru form. I'm gonna say that in Grandpa Gohan's dying breath, he used kind of like a key attack that was able to basically he used the Kamehameha, somewhat of the Kamehameha, and instead of using the Kamehameha, he used like a key attack where he basically just kind of bust off both their tails. They both collapse, and he was able to throw them inside. He was able to get them inside, and he walks right back out because he knew he wasn't going to be able to make it, and collapsed outside as if he was killed by a monster outside in one of the footprints. That's what he does, so that they won't know that they're the ones who did that. Broly tells Goku about what happened, and that's at least what Grandpa Gohan had told him years before, about there being a monster out, and that it actually had happened. And Broly, his power level being at 40,000, Goku being a power level at 2, again he became, by the time, he already has a power level of like 30,000 by the time they see Bulma. If you're thinking that's way too high, he's training with someone with a 40,000 power level. So yeah, Broly doesn't get much stronger, but he doesn't get any stronger, but he does learn a lot of technique. And then he's a little more grown than Goku because he's a couple years older than Goku. So, yeah. They go through some kind of stuff, but they already have power levels that trump most, that are able to keep up with that were basically as strong as the Ginyu Force by the time when they're getting to Z. So, yes, they're going to be fine. Basically, Dragon Ball is a breeze to them. But then they find something that they weren't expecting. There is the whole Piccolo thing happens as in canon. Not as in canon, that Krillin and all them, they think that Goku, when Krillin meets both of them, his power level gets stronger because he's trying to keep up with them. And being that by the time this happened, I'm going to say that Goku was able to close the gap, and now him and Broly both have 40,000 power levels. I'm going to say Broly is slightly stronger, but by 2,000, being that he wasn't getting much power training because he was a lot stronger than Goku. He was just getting technique training, and then they have to fight, when they wind up fighting that one dude, Piccolo, the older Piccolo, he was able to get the Dragon Balls and wish for his, youth back. He's nothing compared to them, and I'm gonna say that they know the whole thing about if they kill him, then all the Dragon Balls are worthless and all that, and they think that we don't kill him, but we do stop him. They think about stealing him, but before they could stop him, he launches an egg out of his mouth. And they were going to go catch it, but I'm going to say that something happened, like a solar flare kind of thing. He used a technique that blinded everyone right before he launched the egg. So he did that, and then did that all the egg thing, same thing. But Piccolo Jr. is going to be a little different. So they still dismantled the Red Ribbon Army a lot easier in this version. All the powerful people who were trouble for them is kind of nothing. And Yamcha is actually good friends with Broly and Goku. But he is also trying to become strong as they are, which he's able to get to 20,000. Him and Krillin are able to get there. And Tien Shinhan, he notices that they're a lot stronger from the Kame school, and he winds up joining them because, his school was basically useless to learning how to be able to crush mountains with your fingertips, which is what the entire Kame school can do. And Roshi actually has to do the super kind of training, so he's actually able to keep up with them. His special training, so he was able to keep up in super. He actually did that training so he could keep up in Z. And I'm going to say that they, by this time, had Tien Shinhan closed the gap between him and the other humans and made it where he had a power level of 30,000. They all have power levels of 30,000. And I'm going to say that they tried lowering their power levels because, actually, no. To do everyday tasks, they have to lower their power levels so they don't accidentally break whatever they're messing with. Like, if they're trying to do, like, normal things, they have to hold back a lot so they don't accidentally crack the planet open with a flick. If you're saying, hey, that's too powerful, I'm saying, nope. And then, before Piccolo Jr., that whole same tournament happens. Only here's how it goes. Krillin and all the others had went into their fighting stances. They did the whole thing. The final thing is actually Goku versus Piccolo, and on the other side you have Tien Shinhan versus Yamcha and Krillin versus Broly. If you're wondering, hey, how come you're doing Krillin like that? You'd be amazed. He might be short, but he's keeping up with the giant tall guy. So here's how the fight goes. Broly won barely. Tien Shinhan won slightly. With all his techniques, he had won. Goku won. You know what? I'm just gonna say that the final match was right after Piccolo had defeated Goku. Goku defeated Piccolo. Then it was the final real event that was Goku versus Broly, which was he considered his older brother. They fought for a solid 2 hours. If you're saying, hey, that's way too long for a fighting match to go on, hey, they can last days fighting. So yeah, I'm gonna say that they can. So Goku knows how, and Goku, basically he won because he had closed the gap. And they were all training. And I'm going to say that the humans trained with Goku and them, and Goku and Broly refrained from training against each other sometimes, because they wanted their friends to catch up. And Goku, here's what happens when Raditz gets there. They feel like, what's that tiny energy? By the way, Piccolo in this version, he tries keeping up, and he's able to close a lot of the gap by getting himself to 50,000. But by this point, Goku and them already have power levels of 60,000, so he's not the strongest, but his techniques make him strong enough to fight. And then they have the whole thing where they have to go to Kame House for the reunion. I'm going to say that Yamcha is actually one of the stronger Z fighters because of his Wolf Fang Fist. I'm going to say it's actually a really good technique because it does seem really cool. I like wolves. So I'm going to say Goku, and they all learned it, but without a doubt, Yamcha's the best at using Wolf Fang, but it's really useful. So in this version, they were all having their power levels low to 500, so they could actually mess with things. Piccolo, he had his power level at 500, so he could do stuff too, and he was at the Z Fighter area too, at Kame House. And Raditz flies over, and when he does that whole thing about being Saiyans and all that, Goku says, "No, you're not. My brother is here," pointing at Broly. And he says, "This is Broly. He is one of the. He was abandoned by the planet." Oh, and the team was actually Goku and all them were there, and I'm going to say that the Saiyans were Nappa, Bardock, Vegeta, Tarble, Raditz. Yeah, there were them. And this other dude who looks like Goku. Anyway, yeah. I'm gonna say that's Goku's cousin or something. I'm not really sure what to do. But anyway, Goku, he starts training harder. If you're wondering why I said training harder, because here's how the fight against Raditz goes. He goes to grab Gohan, and he actually does, because their power levels are 500 by their own set, so they're gonna have to power up to where they're actually at their full strength, because they're holding themselves back quite a bit. So but they're actually going to not hold back anymore, because when he stole Gohan, and when he flicked Krillin through Kame House, here's how well that one works out. Krillin gets right back up, mad, and powers up. But this point, this dude already teleported away, but not really teleported away, but just used his full speed. And I'm gonna say that all of the Saiyans were trying to escape. If you want to mean by trying to escape, not really trying to escape. They're trying to catch up, and I'm going to say that Raditz told the story of what happened and all that. Bardock wasn't really proud of his son for doing that, and in this version, being that Piccolo had considered Gohan one of his own, like his nephew. I'm going to say that, yeah, he was able to consider him like a nephew, and at this point, they were all three really mad. But here's how it happens. Goku, Broly, and Piccolo all blitz over to Raditz. And he hadn't killed anyone. He just sensed Goku's power level and went to that. And now these three are in their fighting stances, and they power up. And Raditz feels that he's about to die because all their power levels are around 60,000. He didn't think that was possible, being that none of the people on his team had that high of a power level. But he also noticed that they didn't have their tails anymore. So he thinks that, okay, it's a 10 times multiplier. He has a power level of 1,000. He can get power level of 10,000. Won't be enough. He winds up joining the Z Fighters because he absolutely gets wrecked for taking Gohan. And I'm going to say that when you hear that a group of Saiyans will be coming here stronger than he is, all of them basically at their base would be stronger than he is, full powered up, that he could even go Ozaru when he'd have trouble fighting them. He would lose in some of the cases even if he went to Ozaru. So he told them this, and they were just, wow. And when he joins, they teach him how to sense ki. And I'm going to say, being that Piccolo and Raditz are trying to keep up, if you're wondering, how are they trying to keep up? Well, Piccolo was weaker, and Raditz is weaker, by far. So they start training really hard. Never mind about the whole Bardock surviving thing. I'm gonna say he had wound up dying on the way there, but while he was trying to recover, they thought he was, but he wound up being stabbed by Frieza when he remembered. So yeah. Anyway, Bardock isn't really major in the story anyway, so let's go. So when they remember about the whole place of the hyperbolic time chamber, but he asked if there was any way to get stronger in different ways because he thought there was a chance that he could lose a fight in that because he doesn't have his tail anymore. And even if he got 2 times stronger, the tail thing would be a real disadvantage. So they said yes. They talked about Kaioshin's world. They go there. All the humans and all that, even Raditz is training in the human world. Here's what Raditz's clothes look like now. He keeps the upper body of the armor, but he doesn't. But he changes it to where he has Z Fighter clothes at the bottom as well. Okay, so I'm gonna say this is kind of how he looks now. He wears Goku kind of Z Fighter clothes, but he keeps the armor thing. And he basically knows that his nephew Gohan is a strong warrior because he can sense a high power level from him. Hold on, guys. I'm going to go back to another picture. Okay, got it. So this is them kind of full grown. So I chose this picture, and here's what happens when the Saiyans land. You have Tarble, Vegeta, Nappa, and that other dude who looks kind of like Goku. So you have 4 Saiyans. I'm going to say these are their power levels. 2,000 for Tarble, Vegeta's 18,000, 5,000 for Raditz, and that other dude, I'm not really sure what his power level would be, so I'm not going to include him. I'm going to say that doesn't happen. So, yeah, so they noticed that even in Ozaru they would, so after Goku gets down to where he was doing, and gets done with what he was doing about getting Gohan that, and when he offers Chi-Chi training, she says no, and then then Kami appears in their minds and says, I will offer him a godly education. All the knowledge I have of the entire world, which is everything, to him, as well as training. I won't even let him go to the battlefield unless it is necessary. She accepts this because she doesn't want to, but being taught by God is basically what she thinks would be the perfect thing. So, yeah, she accepts, and then Goku, I'm going to say they leave Raditz. They don't leave Raditz there. It goes with them. They leave everyone else there to train on Kami's lookout. And they make it to the entire thing in like 30 minutes for Goku and Broly, but sorry about that, guys. It would take 30 minutes for Goku and Broly to get there, but then you have Raditz, whose power level is 1,000, who's like not even who's like a 60th of them, so he is unable to keep up. So they should just grab him and fly at full speed. And he's exhausted when he gets there because he was being drug around and he was scared the whole time. And they land there in a couple minutes. And that is without rushing, but to him it was rushing since he was straight up going full speed. Since they were going full speed, they wanted to rush, so it only took them 5 minutes there. And then Raditz says, if I get strong enough, I am knocking all of you out. Actually, I'm going to say that Raditz gets left there so he can train, and he trains with all of them, and they use the Hyperbolic Time Trainer for Raditz so that he can keep up. And they Goku and Broly learned Kaioken quite easily, and being that it didn't take them, yeah, Yeah, it took them like a couple minutes to get there because they wanted to get there fast so they could train hard. They trained there for a couple months. That's right, a couple months. That's what they have to go through. They trained there for a good old 11 months. And if you're wondering, they have more than enough time to get there in a couple seconds. So all their power levels are like before they even power up, they already have power levels of 400,000. So yeah, their power levels are Goku and Broly have power levels of 400,000 without even powering up. But they're still gonna use Kaioken. They could use Kaioken, but they could literally just not, and they could absolutely wreck them all without even trying. So they make back down to Earth, and they spend about a week. They have 2 weeks left, and I'm going to say that they had taught them all how to use Kaioken and all that, and what the necessary things were for it. And yeah, they used They learned some of them learned about Kaioken, but not all of them. Hold on a second. Okay, guys, I'm back. So they all get to Earth, and here's how it goes. Goku. Well, they're having a little bit of relaxation for a week. They don't relax. They train the whole Kaioken and Spirit Control. Okay, I'm back. They trained Kaioken and Spirit Control, so I'm going to say that they were all able to go Kaioken at least ×1, but some of them had trouble learning before. Like, really, they couldn't use Kaioken. Some of them knew how to use Kaioken. They just had trouble putting it into use. And, like, the humans, they knew their bodies wasn't really able to do much of that, so they just trained more with durability so they could use it. And they're actually able to use Kaioken. Piccolo really gets the most out of Kaioken compared to everyone else. He learns Kaioken real fast. Remember, they have a week left, and they have the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. They had in there multiple times with everyone going, and if you're wondering how they're all going in there at once, I'm going to say they aren't going in there for very long. They're only going in there for a couple hours each. And it's coming back out, going back in, coming back out, going back in. And they were able to do this for a solid 2 hours. They do this for almost a week, but they have a week left. Goku uses it to catch up with Chi-Chi and talk about everything. About how he had to basically learn from a god, about how to fight properly and all that. How there was 10 times Earth's gravity. And I'm going to say that raw strength, I'm going to say that Goku does not have the upper hand. He is right behind someone in raw physical capability, which is where he makes up with it for his technique. If you're wondering who is he weaker than with raw physical power, barely Broly. When it comes to full strength, Broly can last a little bit more, like a couple pounds, which their power levels mean not much. So literally a flick from... So basically, all it would take is like the slightest edge to be given to Goku for him to overpower Broly. And Broly has the slightest edge above Goku, so yes, they're basically barely having that happen. And Broly knows how to fight, but not quite as good as everyone else. Wondering what I mean by technique training? Well, he's more of a rage machine in some of his fights, so when he gets madder, he'll fight harder, but they'll have 400,000. They used to have 400,000 power levels, and everyone notices that they're way lacking, so they train hard for almost a week, and then the last day is all relaxation, and then the Saiyans appear, all 3 of them. Goku's about to laugh because he notices that we didn't really have to do all that training. They were already strongest, because even all they would take is a multiplier of 2, to where they could already just take on the Ozaru forms in a pretty much, actually times 3, and they'd already be stronger than the Ozaru forms. But now they all had power levels up. And I'm going to say that all the humans, and even Piccolo, and even Raditz, had power levels of 70,000. And they all powered up right before the day. Hold on a second, guys. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, they all land, and they notice that the strongest one there is seeming to be Goku, being that their power levels are equal, but Broly doesn't rely as much on ki, he relies more on physical capability, while Goku relies a lot on ki and physical capability. And they notice that when their power level goes up to a full strength, there's not much that can stop them. And when Broly, Vegeta notices that his power level is insufficient, and that even if he went into a Zaru form, he couldn't win. They talk about what their powers are and all that. And I'm going to say that Broly knows that he's physically the most superior one there, but he also knows that Goku can beat him with technique. Barely, but still technically beating him. So, here's how it goes. Tarble and Nappa get into their fighting stance. They all get into their fighting stance, Vegeta, Tarble, and Nappa, which are all basically identical because Nappa basically raised Vegeta and Tarble. So these two get into their fighting stances. Well, these three get into their fighting stances, and Goku alone stands up and gets into his fighting stances. And I'm going to say that all of the Nappa threw all the Cybermen down as well, kind of like he did in Canon, only he threw them all down because he knows he's going to have some help with this. They think that they could go at them all v1 and win, and they think they can overpower that way really fast. And when their physical strength beefs up, if you're wondering why their physical strength beefs up, you hear, why don't just the three Saiyans go against these three Saiyans? They turn their heads to say, what? And Broly said, what? Go. And then Raditz says, you, me, and Goku versus Vegeta, Tarble, and Nappa. And they say, okay. And then you have them all getting into their fighting stance, and it's just like, wait, what? They all notice that they're a lot smaller than what they were expecting. That's right, a lot smaller. Their physical power levels might be very much inferior. And when Nappa goes to throw a punch, he says who should go against who. And the first one to jump in would be Broly, and they look monster to monster. For what I mean by monster to monster, I mean tall guy to tall guy. Because they're both really big dudes. Broly is bigger though. Okay, I'm back. And anyway, Broly and him look eye to eye, and then you have Raditz, who looks dead at Vegeta, saying, I'll go against you. And Goku saying, why do I get stuck with that one? And then you hear, because Goku, because you are the youngest. And saying, wait, but, you know what, how about this? Why don't we go weakest against all? Why doesn't our weakest just go against all of them? And they didn't account for the fact that they all flew to a moon-lit area, which these three go into Ozaru saying, you really think your weakest could keep up with us? Which is power levels 180, 50,000, and I'm going to say his was that Tarble's was 2,000, so 20,000. Raditz, I'm going to say, lost his tail because they didn't want another grade 8 running around at them. So Goku says, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And they're like, wait, but who should go? Us three are the same power level. And then you have rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Yamcha wins, and the Cybermen are still there. And Yamcha gets attacked by all the Cybermen at once. They all jump on him and explode. And it doesn't even phase him. He just straight up says, weak. And then just knocks around Nappa and Tarble a bit. And notices that Vegeta is a real hard work. And he can Kaioken. He has to use Kaioken to keep up with Vegeta. And they say that's enough. And in the end, they said, You sent an Earthling and was able to defeat Saiyan's warriors? And you hear, yes. And their all power levels are shown, about 400,000 for 2 of them, 100,000 for the rest. And yeah, I'm going to say that Raditz was able to keep up because he had trained with Goku and Broly for almost a week. While the others were training trying to get Kaioken, Raditz was training trying to keep up. So his power level was heightened by that. Now, all the Earthlings keep training, and they talk about how Frieza's a thing, and about the whole Dragon Balls for wishing people back. And I'm going to say that Nappa Scouter was still there, so yeah, Nappa's the reason why. Nappa got it where he says, oh, so the Namekian wish orbs do work, and Nappa's just like, oh, no, he was reading my Scouter. Just like, okay. They all train on Earth, and Bulma uses all their tech from Raditz's all their ships, even Kami's trying to get their tech, and she understood it. She made a machine, the entirety of the machine. Okay, I'm back. So, Raditz knows that these 3 Saiyans aren't as strong as Goku or any of them. So they keep training, and I'm going to say that they were able to make a wish on the Dragon Balls to make them where all of them have a power level of 1 million. They go for a 1 million because he says that's all I can raise y'all's power level up to. That's what the dragon says. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. One of my games just wanted to notify me of something, so yeah. They all train, and 1 month passes. Not really a month, a week passes, and Bulma was already able to get the entire ship thing happening. Gohan stayed. They asked if Gohan would come with us to experience another culture and everything. Chi-Chi sang another culture, and she allows it because they find that Goku and them would probably be more than strong enough to fight anything. Because at this point they all have power levels of 1 billion. Because of the Dragon Balls, they made that wish. Okay, I'm back, guys. I just had to think about something real quick. So, they all get into the gravity room, and they ask how Bulma's going to be in there. She tells them about the room that doesn't get affected by the gravity, and they're impressed. And she says Gohan can stay in there with her while all of them are training. And being that none of them die, they just all got beaten down, and they get kind of a buff up a little bit. Nappa gets to 6,000, 3,000 for Tarble, and 24,000 for Vegeta. And being that no one else really got much of more than just bored. Basically, the person who had the most injury was what is his name? Yamcha, and the only reason that was because he was using Kaioken. So he had a Senzu afterwards, and he was good to go. They all go in the ship and train, and here's where the power level makes a difference when they're training. Goku is a lot more got more gain training than anyone else. While Broly, he notices he's trying to master that weird form that came out in the fight. If you're wondering how any weird form came out in any fight because he didn't fight at all, while they were training, at one point, Raditz at one point, I'm going to say that they had actually managed to land a hit on Goku after wishing for 1 billion power levels. for all power level 1 billion, and they actually managed to hurt Goku, and he coughed blood, which they would thought that being that their power level was higher enough, they could win. And this enraged Broly, so Broly knocked Vegeta, Nappa, both out, because Tarble was a good person. He was just listening to them, because he was weaker, but now that they're all the same strength, he could keep up with them, so he didn't have to listen to that. So now, they notice that Tarble's training more relies on speed and ki, while Vegeta's training actually, they all do the martial arts training, so they aren't sloppy martial artists and gets clapped by someone with better martial arts skills. So, without a doubt, Goku and Broly are the strongest two, being followed suit by Yamcha, Tien, and Krillin. Then you have Vegeta, and then you have Tarble, and then, actually no, it's Goku, Broly, Raditz, Nappa, not Nappa, Goku, Broly, Raditz, Krillin, Tien Shinhan, and Yamcha. Tien Shinhan, Yamcha, and Krillin have the exact same power level, so, yeah. Okay, I'm back. And Tien Shinhan and they notice that Tarble and Nappa seem to be lacking behind. They ask Tarble why his power level is staying so low. Tarble says he's doing more of technique training, and they said, okay. And at this point, Frieza had already made it to there and was actually getting the Dragon Balls. He already had 2. But but all of them got together, and they noticed that when they gripped their fist, no one was keeping up with them. Oh, and in this timeline, future Gohan survived. And was able to obtain Super Saiyan 2, but barely, and then collapsed. So, I'm going to say that, occasionally Gohan would train with them, but being that his dad already had power level in, like, the upper thousands, they noticed, like, he's already strong enough to keep up. He was able to easily keep up with, Nappa for a while in training, until he had surpassed him and was starting to go with Tarble as his training partner. He couldn't quite keep up with Tien, Yamcha, or Krillin, so he keeps with Tarble as his training partner. But he keeps training a lot harder, like he's actually going to be the strongest, which he is thinking about becoming a martial artist scholar at the same time. As a kid, he thinks of having 2 goals, being a martial artist like his father, and being what his mother wants him to be, a super genius. So, he tries that, and he is. He managed to be both a super genius and a absolute monster compared to everyone else. And so, when they land on Namek, you just hear, what's that? Everyone in the Frieza Force just turn their head to feel a massive power level. Massive power levels of 3 billion. I'm going to say they all have the same power level, but technique-wise, who's the strongest? If you're wondering how Raditz was able to go good with technique, it's because he's not very powerful, so he was learning more on technique instead of power-based. Because he might have been made fun of because he was weaker, but he had more technique than anyone else. So when he learned martial arts, technique was pretty easy for him to learn. So, yeah. So, when they land, they just feel all these power levels of 3,000, and then their scouters feel 2 weak power levels with that. not quite weak, but, well, one weak, one really weak one, and one that's moderate. One of 20,000, and another of, what is it? Another of 5. If you're wondering why 5, it's because the average power level on Earth is 5, so I'm saying that Bulma has a power level of 5. So yeah. And I'm going to say they go around collecting Dragon Balls, protecting the villages, and Frieza feels a power level that surpasses his own with his scouters, which he thinks impossible. So he calls the Ginyu Force in, so they could all get together to save. So they could all fight, and if the strongest one of them happened to come by, if he was actually stronger than Frieza, then he could actually get Ginyu to steal the body of him. And yeah, so this is how that goes. They all land on Namek, protect villages, and then they go see the Grand Elder after getting all but 3 of the Dragon Balls. Frieza gets there right after they all go inside. And Nail is there with them. Nail senses that their power levels far exceed his own, so yeah. He knows their power level far exceeds his own, but he still trains harder. And he gets his potential unlocked, but winds up fusing with Piccolo because while they were outside, Frieza was able to actually very badly injure Nail. Piccolo, he is there with them, but his power level doesn't really fit in with theirs. His is 3,000, yes, but his technique, that's a little different. His technique isn't like theirs. He still fights, and he has a fighting stance, but it's a lot different than theirs. So he wasn't learning Turtle School martial arts. He was learning a different technique, so it can't really be the same. But he's actually right beneath Raditz and right above the humans. And if you're wondering why Raditz is even stronger than him, not strength-wise, technique-wise, that's the only reason. Sorry guys, I just got a little thirsty, so I had to pop open a Coke. Anyway, so Raditz kept his anyway, so they all learn that their tails might be needed. I'm going to say that there's a legend of Super Saiyan, and that there's supposed to be 5 forms of it. And then there's a form above God, and then there's a form called God, where a couple Saiyans fuse their powers where 6 Saiyans put their power level together, and it's called Super Saiyan God. And Goku, he's intrigued about Super Saiyan, and now they hear about and he actually absorbed Guru as well, because it would work best. And he's now the strongest Z fighter. Well, not for long. They learn about, after absorbing Guru, had taught them about Super Saiyan and what the requirements were. Because there were actual requirements. You had to be pure-hearted, which Goku, Broly, and Tarble are all pure-hearted Saiyans. If you're wondering why Tarble, it's because he's pure-hearted. He's just very weak. He just wasn't strong enough to compare. So yes. So Tarble and Goku were able to get into Super Saiyan. They learned about Super Saiyan, and that you have to be enraged to go into it. And when Frieza gets there, he powers up into his full power, which I'm going to have to make it 200 million. because there's been a lot of assumptions about that. But that fight is going to happen on the next episode of Dragon Ball Slick. Nah, latest Slick King.